We are lighting the candle, a world that works. And let me see if I remember how this goes. I'm here with three of my besties that I feel like I haven't seen in almost a month, but the fact of the matter is they were in my life and in my heart every single day. So I've got, I don't know how it's going to appear on your screen, but I've got Jan Jeremias to my left on my screen, then Lisa Sheehan above her, and then my good buddy Ken Caputo. And I didn't mean to leave out good buddy Lisa because she knows who she is for me. So in the meantime, we've had a lot going on in the world and a lot going on in our lives. And there have been some really fantastic, wonderful things going on for several of us. And my minister friend puts it this way: God is careful not to give you too much good or too much bad since the garden, but you're going to get some of both. So in the meantime, normally we would pick a word. And as we were coming on, I met with a new coaching client today. And I thought, Lisa, you've actually done some coaching or been coached, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And Jan, I know you're a teacher, trainer, coach, and Ken, same for you. So I thought it might be really kind of nice, for the four of us. We've got advanced training in this area, and we probably have some good, bad, and ugly stories. But the point is it might be a neat thing if we can talk about what coaching is for us, what it makes possible in the world, and what mostly people who need to be coached don't know about how to get started with it. I'll just kick that off. Does that sound appealing to you folks? Or do you want to try something else?
Works for me.
All right, then. So who is a coach and what is a coach?
I'm sure that's a vast definition. I'm sure there's a vast definition for it. And I think the odd thing is that, like there's no like, you can have certification, but there's no laws, there's no definite certification that you need to have to be a coach. So they're out there, there's so many of them, and anybody can basically call themselves a coach. But I personally think it's amazing and so wonderful and helpful that there's so many coaches out there in every aspect of life too. You could find something for just about anything. So I think it's only helpful that people can be guided along different areas of life instead of being a single focus like you tend to be when it's just you yourself and you looking at your life. So that's my first take on that.
What always comes to mind to me when I think about a coach is Jiminy Cricket. And occupation, pain in the ass, and always asking questions that you don't want to answer.
Mm.
And I think the primary distinction of being a coach from my experience and how I language it to people is coach is a committed partner with an equal vested investment or in an outcome that is mutually agreed upon, and a course of action over time is designed to create new behaviors that create new habits, to give you a place to operate from to accomplish your dreams. So that's a lot of words, but the coach remembers. The coach is a promise keeper. In my view, not necessarily with the technical technique and that sort of thing, but watching to see the things in terms of behavior and life's work that's not apparent or is invisible to the person being coached, but they're partners.
And I think there's a level of accountability and structure that a coach provides, especially when you're thinking about something that's very result oriented. Good coaches do that. They're flexible, but they also make sure that you're actually taking action on the things that you need to be taking action on.
Completely agree. I think there's a complete platform of trust that's required. We lost Jan for a second. She'll be back. But there's a complete level of trust that is required in both directions, which is why I say it's an equivalent partner, just got different jobs to do on the team. So
Yeah, I think it's, oh, go ahead, Bill. Sorry.
I'm just going to say, for example, that I know how to do something doesn't necessarily qualify me as a good coach, to Lisa's point. I may not have the, the training myself to be able to deliver the understanding to someone who's paying for it. So there are lots of different kinds of coaches, and a person who's a good coach for singing might not necessarily be a good coach for karate.
Very true. Yeah, I think it's good for people to kind of determine, is it a coach they need or is it a mentor that they need? Because they are a little bit different. Like, I don't really do coaching anymore. I provide mentorship, which has a slightly different feel to it. It's a little bit more open, and I feel like it's a little bit more integrated, but it's less on the accountability side and more on the questioning side. It's a little bit less, you need to do this, and it's more along you kind of guide and listen a lot more, I think.
I like that. You didn't miss much, Jan, but I think the distinction in your mic's off. The distinction between coach and mentor, from my view, is a coach is more performance specific in terms of, specific measurable goals, where a mentor tends to be somebody who's committed to mastery, being with someone else who is a master. Probably don't think they are necessarily, but they're really good at making the right question and the right comment at the right time over a lifetime.
Yeah. And it's, just that, like, as an example, early in my career when I was teaching a lot of martial arts, there was a lot of coaching involved. It was understanding mechanically how to get someone, and there was also mentorship. I mean, we connected it to other areas of their life, but if I was working with someone who wanted to compete in the ring with, fighting or comedy, there's like specific things they needed to do. And you wanted to track that, hold that accountable, is very, very detail oriented and focused. Whereas now I only teach a couple people privately, and it's really those physical skills are a metaphor for how they're living their life. And it's all in service to that. So it's less about doing the punch exactly right and more about why they're practicing punching, and what the needs are for that, and having a little bit more of an open format. So, and they both have value, but like you said, Bill, I think the person needs to be clear as to what value they're looking to get before making decisions on what they need,
I think that's well said.
Do you, like, Bill, Jan, and Ken, do you have like questions that you like one main question that you ask somebody to see what their why is for wanting a coach?
Well, yes and no. In my opinion, it's become a mechanical step with most people in the first thing you do when setting goals. Most of the people that I've coached didn't have to get in touch with a new why. It didn't have to refer to the why. They just had to decide they were going to do the work. And that's how I started in the 1990s. The whole, why are you doing this? What's the thing that you can keep coming back to? We did a thing called state training, which is something that Tony Robbins was a master at. The opportunity to take yourself from being upset, having been triggered, in a situation, in a social situation at work, and then being able to alter your state immediately and shift into a place where you want to be, and you're accessible to the world, and the world's accessible to you too. And there was more of that sort of thing, just the self-talk and the self-knowledge, because we hadn't gotten to that point. But now almost every single MLM, when you first sign up, before you go out and have your conversations with people to get them to either buy something from you or to sign up, has this mechanical step of creating your why. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I don't think the work is done properly to connect people with what they really value, and what the direction and the degree their compass is pointing magnetic north. But I think that's a great question.
I've heard the people, and I think everybody's probably heard of, and I can't remember who started it, but to ask the why to the seventh time, mm-hmm. Because your first initial why is never quite specific enough, and not really where your passion lies, or what your true motivation is. So I always thought that was an interesting way to get to somebody's core.
So yeah, there was a man named Werner Erhard, and he used sevens a lot. That he said one of the things is people will not remember what you've said to them until they've heard it from you 7 times. And then, he had this knack of walking into a space where there'd be volunteers cleaning his bathroom or something of that nature. And I heard this from a man that actually did that for Werner. And Werner came in and he said, "Well, what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm cleaning your bathroom." And he said, "And what difference will that make?" And he said, "Well, you'll have a clean place to be able to not, become triggered by anything in the environment that's not right. It's going to be perfect and clean. And what difference will that make?" And so that went on for 7 times. And the answer always got to, it will change the world for the better. That was the work to get there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now, I guess, if you take that's the Martin Luther King quote. If you're sweeping the street, make everybody completely jealous of how good a street sweeper cleaned that space. What's it like being coached?
Completely depends. So, no, that could be an interesting thing. And I think the main thing is there needs to be alignment in both directions for it to be a meaningful experience, so, and it's not all partnerships are going to work as well as you would like them to. It has nothing to do with you and nothing to do with them. It just has to do with the dynamic created. So, so sometimes, like, I've had many times where I've tried coaching with people and it just didn't work out. It was frustrating, and it wasn't that they were doing anything wrong or they didn't know what they were doing. It just didn't work for me, or I didn't work for them. So, but then when it works right, it can be incredibly empowering, and it can help you unlock new levels of your own potential. And I think more importantly, it helps you. A good coach will reveal to you your blind spots in a constructive way that allows you to recognize where you have potential areas for growth,
I really like that. And again, the period of time where I could point to and say this was transformational in terms of my business, my marriage, my view of myself, everything. I mean, it was holographic. It was across every part of my life. It was where I went from being president of a new company, going down and getting involved in a situation where I needed to be trained and coached, to find out that coaching wasn't someone who had the answers, but more likely they had the questions, as you say, Ken.
Yep.
And with that, it was kind of funny because can't remember exactly what the occurrence was, but there was something that was going on, and somebody was trying to tell me to do something that I knew was absolutely incorrect and wrong and would not help. And I said, "Well, he's saying I'm saying this to you as your coach," and I said, "I'm saying this to you as your I'm saying back to you as your coachee." And he said, "Well, you're uncoachable." And I said, "Maybe. And isn't it more likely that we just don't have common language yet on what we really want to accomplish here?" And he looked at me and he said, "You don't need a coach. You need a place to be a coach."
Mm.
So I immediately got put on a coaching team. And the two reasons that he said afterwards was how cool and calm I was while he was getting upset. And then when he called me a name, I changed it back around to say, what if there's nothing wrong with either one of us? What's missing here is just some common language. And he said, "I don't know where you got that from." He said, "But I want that book."
Mhm.
I said, I can't tell you that I remember where I got that from, but I did get it from somewhere. I think the neat part of it is that from then on, I really had a relationship with coaching that was about mutual transformation. That you really don't deliver something to a coachee. You transform and grow together, or like you said, Ken, it's going to fall apart. There's got to be gold for all parties involved.
Yeah, I think it's especially important now to make sure that you look as clearly and closely as you can as to someone who's positioning themselves as a coach or mentor, because it's become, with social media, it's very, very easy for people to have the appearance of someone who can help you, and they can't. They've just, they're very good at marketing. They're very good at messaging. You see this in the fitness industry a lot right now. There are a lot of people out there who they're in good physical shape. So you see the picture of them with their shirt off, and basically they download other people's training plans and just give it to you, and you get charged a lot of money. So you have to be really, really aware of the fact that there's a lot of unfortunately deceptive practices, because it's an easy thing to monetize, and it's always much easier to tell other people what to do than to discipline yourself to do those things. So
Agreed. And the other thing is I never just take a client. I go through pretty rigorous screening in terms of compatibility. Can we be friends first? Then can we be friends that disagree with each other? Then can we be friends that go away from each other for a little while to take the time out to think and get back together and get productive? And I usually can find that out in the first hour conversation, whether or not there's a fundamental fit, and if we're compatible in terms of going through the noise that they're going to have in their lives while we're trying to accomplish something together, and they want to waste my hour with them telling me a lot of story, as opposed to asking for specific coaching about where they saw something go off the rails and what would be some other alternatives that we might be able to employ there. And it's been a good tool for me because I've always had better clients who really understood the coaching relationship, and also we're not coming into it so that we could deliver them more income. If you're any good, I should be able to double my income in the next 5 years. Well, no, if I'm any good, you should be able to double your income in the next year or less. What? Okay. But that's definitely coaching and not mentoring, Ken.
Well, specific goal. Yeah. I mean, you're just looking to produce a monetary result.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So
I
the
think
being
accountability is, go ahead.
no, I'm going to be quiet, Lisa. You go ahead. And then I want to
No, I
hear
was
from
gonna,
Jane.
accountability is the thing that most people need, and most people constantly ignore or don't do, and that's what a coach is. The first thing, that comes up is like, you're going to be accountable to me, kind of thing. And I think that's one of the reasons people don't get a coach, because they know they're going to have to be held accountable. But it's definitely something that's necessary for people to move ahead. I mean, even if you have an accountability partner, it doesn't even matter. But that's all that some people need sometimes. It just tell somebody you're going to do something and follow through.
I love that. I have hundreds of business friends that have accountability partners, but nothing in their life has changed for 5 years.
Well,
I
then
mean,
they're not doing it.
we have good conversations, it's all good. So a good coach, in terms of the accountability, you know how that goes? What did you say you were going to do? What did you do?
Right.
Now, what are you going to do different? Get busy.
Because I remember hearing like Jack Canfield when he was young, and so his mentor told him that in order to be successful, he had to take 100% responsibility for his life. And he went, "What? It sounded easy, but that's really hard."
Yeah, and that promise is made by a child, no matter how old you are. No clue even what that means. Got to take 100% responsibility for your life. How am I going to do that?
Tomorrow.
But that is step one of transformation. Anything that doesn't work is my fault, or anything that does work is yours. Miss Jan,
Yeah. Yes.
what kind of thoughts are you having at the moment?
um, and maybe I just don't know how I would classify it. And I missed Ken's little because I got dropped, but I mean, every coach that I've ever had has always been a really great listener. That's just like an active listening as opposed to passive listening, just being able to, and I think in general, that's really what that's all people want, is they want a place where they're heard. So I know that's a huge part of my, health coaching, is people want a place to say whatever they want to say.
That's a good insight. And a lot of times early in the coaching career, there's a lot of that going on, and less talking about the skills, but more or less just sharing the failures and being able to do that with somebody they know is not going to judge or tell them that they should be doing better or something of that nature, or just whatever it is that they need to be heard about.
And I think there's an element of authenticity for the coach. So it's kind of like going to someone who looks very unhealthy as a health coach. It doesn't resonate. There's something about it that just doesn't, you're like, okay, well, you're telling me to do all these things, but you don't really look very healthy yourself. So being able to, and I'm not saying, I don't know, you have to walk the talk, so to speak, in my opinion.
Well, that person you described might be a teacher and not a coach.
Might be, but I mean, I don't even look at it. I mean, I look at it as like, going to a doctor that looks really unhealthy. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to go to somebody who doesn't look healthy.
That was kind of a tagline for those Ukrainian glacial minerals back in the day. The headline was "Dead Doctors Don't Lie." The average age of a doctor when they pass is 53 years old. Now, I have no idea if that actually was true, but we had no internet then to really check into it too much.
And what Jan was saying was brought to mind that that's why I would always gravitate towards circles, like circles of trust, where it was all listening, and no fixing, saving, or advising. It was just deep listening, like Jan was saying. Like that's so important to people to let their, as circle of trust people would say, their shy soul come out. The real part of you that is looking for an answer at the moment, and even though the answer is kind of inside you usually, but you need to get to that point of trust.
Cool.
Well, that's what I was originally going to say about coaching is it's not really, you just ask the right questions so the person comes up with the answer themselves. Because if they come up with the answer themselves, they're more likely to carry through and to do it versus, I think that if it truly resonates with them on a deep level, then they're more likely to take action and do it.
Well, that's when it's really good to be able to ask that 7 times.
Right, exactly.
Because sometimes that's exactly what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
There is also just the counterweight to that, the time where, especially from a coaching perspective, they have knowledge that will shorten your learning curve, and you just need to shut up and do it. Because, they understand in a way that you don't. Like, you'd see that with a lot of physical athletics, and there's just certain things that if you do them mechanically, it's going to be safer, more productive, and your motivations behind it are less relevant than your implementation of best practices that someone with decades of experience is going to have that you just don't. So it's kind of like when your teenager thinks they know everything, and they just don't have the reference base, and sometimes you just have to pull rank on them to keep them safe. So there is that part of it. But I agree. I mean, the majority of it, I always find it interesting. The best mentors I've had, they do more than just listen. They help you. They reflect back what you're saying to you in a way that you hear what you're actually saying, not what you think you're saying, but they take it to a deeper level, and they never get too high or too low. Good coaches are like that too. They don't overinflate your successes or your failures. They find a way to help you stay focused on the process. And, and that's actually one of the things I look for now. Anyone, especially if you look in the social media influencer area, if they're invoking extremely strong emotions anywhere in the spectrum, fear, anger, or hope, and, like this amazing life of your dreams, I'm skeptical of that. If they're trying to drive you towards decisions based on, do this or you'll die, or do this and you'll live forever, I have questions. So,
Pay me $69.95 a month, and you'll be able to drive a Ferrari next year.
Yeah, and you see it that's real big in the nutrition world right now. They're running around in grocery stores, pointing to all the labels and telling you all the things that will kill you, and and most of it's misunderstood. They don't actually understand what those ingredients are. They just draw chains of fear that makes you question your ability to actually purchase food safely. So now you need them to tell you what to do. And they just, it's kind of like the news cycle. They keep stimulating this kind of confusion and fear so that they become your trusted resource when they're not. They're just not. So.
Well, LinkedIn is a hoot. Thinking if you search for a coach, and you get this long list of people, and in their name it says the happiness coach, or the time off coach, or the too many kids coach, or it just goes on and on and on. And quite frankly, I'm just wondering, what's in it for them, and do they ever get any customers?
A lot of them figured something out that works for them. And, and then it's nothing wrong with figuring out if that's translatable. And what's interesting is there's such a saturation now that if it's not good beyond their own ability to implement it, it probably won't get much traction.
Right.
And they kind of weed themselves out pretty quickly. But, you know, but it's definitely, it's an interesting world we live in right now with just, there's no gatekeepers, you know, there's just full access to anything and everyone. So you really got to pay attention.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. We're talking about the distinctions between coaching and mentoring. I typically start off with a coaching agreement, and then at some point it just slides into mentoring. And unless there's some big new challenge that it's going to require intensive thinking and experience and that sort of thing, you know, there's no need to charge for that anymore. Now we're friends, you know, and it just seems to work out pretty well that way. So I've got people in my life that have been around for 25, 30 years. And that's the most rewarding part of relationships, as a matter of fact, is going from a fee for service kind of a situation to when can I buy you dinner? Let's just sit down and talk. Tell me what you've been doing.
That's cool, just even to be able to say that to future clients or whatever. I mean, because that's not what I hear typically, you know.
No, this turned out to be a different form of psychotherapy, which requires that you have a shingle.
Right.
So this is a faster track to being, you know, a trauma sharing listener, which isn't not the same as being a good listener, Jan. I do like those pauses.
I'm trying to think too, like, Jan, when people come to you for yoga, what are the reasons outside of physical, you know, getting into physical shape that they come to you? Have you noticed anything that underlies there?
I mean, for me, a lot of it is pain management, just because of the clients that I tend to see and work with. And stress management probably are the two where people come to me most. You know, very rarely do people come to me because they really want to, you know, do cool poses. I don't think.
No?
No. I'm nobody, I don't know. You know, I have had students periodically tell me, you know, like, you know, I really want to do a headstand, you know, like they'll have a pose that they really want to do and they'll be like, can you help me, kind of thing. But it's usually not where they begin.
Right.
Well, we all know that getting more blood to the brain makes you not only smarter, but makes you live 10 times as long.
That's right. Good way of cleansing. It's good way of cleansing out the brain. Go upside down.
It's true. That's why those boot things where you dangle from.
Yeah, inversion tables and things. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's also really great because it reverses gravity. So
that mean it'll move my chest back up where it used to be?
Stretches the spine.
Stretches the spine so that if you drink, then afterwards it'll create more cushion between the discs.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would say that's the majority of people that come to me for yoga.
So there's kind of an interesting concept. The word coach team leader came into manufacturing in force in the 1970s, especially when we were doing, you know, quality circles and that sort of thing. And I think I've talked about it a few times where we would have the team get together and huddle up in a circle out in the middle of the manufacturing floor while somebody described the problem that they were hearing, and we got the best listening from everybody in the group. So this is where the coach team leader's job was to empower people to keep looking for a solution and keep asking each other better questions. And sometimes, you know, when I was the team leader, all I would do is I would say, hey, John, what do you got on that? Is there something that we haven't talked about yet that you think might be important here? And it was very, very cool to do that because I worked in highly technical engineering manufacturing situations for about 8 years. from, I don't know, building carburetor floats and other, injection molded type stuff to building cloth cutting machines for Gerber garment technology. So the team came up with the answer, and I thought that worked really well. But I also worked in many situations where the supervisor had the answer or you didn't go anywhere.
Hello, corporate America.
Yep. Not interested in getting a solution, just interested in not looking bad. One of the neat things to do too is to create coaches.
Mm.
Is to have people get inspired by their own ability to transfer knowledge to a coworker, to where they then became a lead person to go to help people troubleshoot. Very cool. So you're training this sustainable culture of people that would always bring the new person up to speed as quickly as possible. And it was great for morale. Quality numbers were excellent, and presenteeism was incredible. People didn't want to take a day off. There was too much cool stuff going on. They needed to be around to get involved with it.
There's a lot less risk of siloing. I mean, if you're actively looking to kind of share and teach and better each other, then you're not going to get as I mean, that's always one of the challenges in corporate settings. If your performance is directly related to the least amount of risk that you assume, and the best job you can do of upholding the way things currently are, then yeah, you're not going to want to volunteer very much. That could rock that boat, So, but at the very least, if you're, if you foster value in helping each other out, providing each other with support, that's definitely going to be a much more enjoyable place to work
for a longer period of time. There's a high turnover in the authoritarian, dominate the conversation type cultures, where people learn to keep their mouth shut because it's risky to open and make suggestions.
Yeah. Jim Collins, in his books, he called that model the genius with 1,000 helpers. It's, where you have one person and everybody else's job is to figure out what they want and do it, and if anything goes wrong, he's, you get the blame. And if everything goes right, they get the credit.
Because there's another form of working together, and that's the working together from a common enemy point of view. So you help each other out because you don't want to get in trouble or do it wrong or try to figure out together how to solve the problem so that you can bring that to the genius.
That was Nike starting out. You want to know what Nike's mission was starting out?
Yes.
Crush Reebok.
Oh.
It was like literally their rallying cry, so they did exactly what you're saying. They were focusing on, they were all in it together to try to take down the companies that were outperforming them, and I don't think, I don't know enough of if it was actually like undermining Reebok. I think it was just, we've got to become so much better than they are that, more people buy our products than buy theirs,
Lisa, I actually heard you talking about their own fearless leader in their own company. We're going to survive this together. That person is going to be long gone, but we'll still be here.
Which is unfortunate many times.
100%. But, management, upper management doesn't stand for that for very long. Very easy to see it, and especially when somebody takes a day or two off. They take their week's vacation and come back again, and suddenly they got a new job.
It's a strange culture to be in many ways.
Yeah, talking about authenticity. In,
Doesn't
in many
exist. Yeah.
companies, there just isn't any there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it's all up on the walls. They claim it.
right. You are. Customer is
Big,
king.
big posters of what they stand for. But ask any employee.
Yeah. The most exciting thing is to be in the cafeteria singing the company song.
Well, now you're back to what, if any, what kind of coaching are they getting and to what end? So, so I mean, if you're like athletics, is it win now at all costs? That's a very different thing. Or is it, get the biggest contract I can get? Or, is it multiple championships, or is it still be able to walk and have a fulfilling life when my years as an athlete are done? All of those things are going to require different types of reference bases and a different type of coach to help you get there.
I think
So
but
companies
what
are
all
the
of you
same
have
way.
said,
Yeah.
yeah, what all of you have said too is like, so if money is your end game, which is what it is for like a lot of corporations,
Mhm.
because we're owned by venture capitalists, so that's all they really care about. So, um, and like you said, if like Bill, I don't even know if you would coach somebody that their end game was just to make more money, because that's not a sustainable passion. I'm thinking, you know what I mean? It's not your why kind of thing.
It's not
Ultimately.
transformational. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah, there you
Change
go.
jobs. Boom, you got it. All right. Move into another company. Boom,
Yeah.
you got it. You don't need a coach for that.
Yeah.
I retired from resume writing really early on.
I don't even know if they use resumes that much anymore.
I don't know either, but I'll tell you what. That's an interesting story that you brought up. And when I did coach the resume writing, I said, what you put on the paper is far less important than how you deliver it. So you got to do something different. And this one gal, she was a graphic designer, and she sent out resumes to 50 different companies between New York City and Boston. And she sent them in a box. And she folded the resume up and she put it underneath a little Statue of Liberty.
Oh.
And there was a sign on the Statue of Liberty that says, there's only one person that will work harder for you than me. And she's tied up at the moment. It was brilliant. She got like 9 offers. It was crazy.
I did one for myself when I first got out of college. I did it as a like sponsor a child ad. So my picture was on it, and it's like, meet Lisa Shan. She has this, and this, but she doesn't have the right job yet, kind of thing.
Cool.
And there's a coupon at the bottom. I want to hire Lisa immediately. Here's $50 to make the journey better, something like that. But I did get a major interview out of that. But
Yeah. It's the ones that get you called in that are the important. I always told people there's 4 ways that you need to deliver this resume. First of all, you're going to get yourself a blue envelope and you're going to handwrite the person's name who's going to be receiving it on the outside, and you're going to mail it. The second one is you're going to drop by the company and go to the personnel office and hand a copy of your resume to the personnel manager. The third way you're going to do this is you're going to put it in a box of cupcakes, deliver it, to the front desk and say, the cupcakes are for you. Would you get this to the supervisor that's hiring for this job? And then the fourth way was whatever else we came up with brainstorming.
Cool.
And had a real good record with people getting jobs quickly. They were well qualified, no doubt about it, but waiting for all resumes to open. I think the last job I actually hired from resumes, I had 50 or 60. And today I understand that they get as many as 300 or 400 resumes for any posted job in the, on Indeed or something like that. Seems like a pretty ineffective way to try to, build an organization.
Yeah, plus they all have the computer programs to pick out the
Right.
keywords and stuff like that. So they're not even looking at cleverness or anything like that anymore.
I was going to
No,
say, I think they go much more by like questionnaires now.
Mm.
If these very, very involved, sort of lengthy question answer type things. And then they basically say, please include your resume at the end.
And what's really, really neat about the resume, it's like a caterpillar. There's usually not much in there that's going to give you information about the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. They all follow the same scripts. They all use the same kind of buzzwords. And at the end of the day, the team chemistry and cultural compatibility and willingness and ability to learn almost always is much more important in that job than somebody who's got a strong history in language.
And to Jan's point too, I think that's why they do a lot of those personality tests too, and to see
That
if
would
you
be
fit.
interesting.
Hmm?
I wonder if I would get a job that way. Maybe not. Oh well, I guess I'll keep doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
So I wonder what it would all be like if the fitting room concept was fully embraced, where everyone is actively trying to inform, as far as a partnership, as best as possible, who they are and what's needed in both directions to find the best fit. Because right now, either you need a job because you need money and you got rent or mortgage or whatever, and you're trying to convince them you can fit, or the company is uncomfortable with revealing too much about what will be required to fit. So there's not really a conversation. There's just this game. It's a negotiation where you don't show too many of your cards too quick, and you're trying to figure out what the other person wants to see so that you can come to an agreement to give it a shot. So if it were the other way around where it's open, now if everybody was working to figure out how well are we going to match, how well will this work as a partnership, take a little bit of time to have that conversation, that might be interesting. The other thing one of the things that we did that I feel is very valuable, and also I don't see it as much, is the entire time someone's working with you, you're comfortable with the idea of them moving on and having been better for their time with you, because like talking about personality tests, Ben Hardy wrote a great book called Personality Isn't Permanent. And it's the fact that we are not fixed. Our personality, when you get it assessed, may be completely different 5 years later. So even if the agreement that you had when you began the work with each other, one of the players may have evolved. The company may have evolved in a direction that doesn't really work for you anymore, or you evolved. So what does that look like? Is it a celebration of the growth that occurred and then you take that with you, or does it create tension and, fear and all that kind of stuff?
I think they should force corporate America to have a coach, like the upper management.
Well,
they do, but the challenge is what do they want? There's a lot of places it's, Michael Gerber talked about it decades ago in E-Myth. It's hire the lowest common denominator, make it the easiest job so that you have replaceable assets, the assets being the people. So if you're starting there, now it's a matter of just continually replacing people as they move on, but not really developing them. You're training them to do a repetitive skill. It's just an industrial model. And there were very good reasons for him doing it. The main one was looking at most small business owners who don't own a business, they own a job, and they're doing all of these things, and they have no idea how to not work themselves to death and have nothing to show for it at the end of their career. They don't have a business that is sellable, so there's very good value with it, but at the same time, it does kind of create this environment where, you're not really thinking about empowering people. You're thinking about the fact that people will come and go and you need to survive in that environment. So,
Lisa, what I heard you saying, I might be off track, but again, the top management of the company who doesn't have the skill to do what Ken is talking about and install that kind of a upwardly mobile culture, they have, for the 50 some odd years that I've been working for corporations, spent a lot of time on outside contractors. And I've watched consultants come in and the top management basically wants the consultants to talk to the folks that work there and don't bother us with the details and everything. We'll give the opening speech and tell everybody how cool this is and how it's going to change our whole future and all that. And then you guys take over from there. And we've seen that happen all through the years, from personnel policies and procedures and any state statutes or federal laws or that sort of thing. But almost always, at the end of the day, for modern corporations, the headcount and the profitability are linked with each other. Because I've seen companies spend literally millions of dollars and then lay off a huge part of their workforce the following year.
Mm-hmm.
So the neat part of it is I think there's a middle ground somewhere where you can actually talk to people. And my opening line is always, what do you think the problem is? And then I sit and listen for about 15 minutes. And then when they're done, I said, I got a real kind of a power question for you. At the end of my look-see, when I find out and do my own looking around, would you be willing to find out that you're the problem?
Mm.
And the good ones say, Bill, I know I'm the problem. I just haven't got an effing clue what to do about it. And then I said, I think we might be able to work together. But more often than not, there's something that's changing in the workforce faster than the top management and middle management can respond to that change. And in the last 5 years, turnover has become like the number one problem in any non-automated factory. That people will come in, they'll be fine for weeks and months, and then they're out calling out 2 or 3 times a week. Can't get people trained up and competent fast enough, to satisfy orders. And then the quality goes in the dumper and all the rest of that. And these are the same people that don't pay folks $1.50 more an hour, which is what other people will pay them to lure the good ones away.
Right. See it every day.
100%.
Michael Singer talks about that, and he talks about teaching people how to find fulfillment in the work that they're doing.
Mm.
And I think there's that element to it too, because if you're looking if your expectation is that the work is going to fulfill you, you'll be quickly disillusioned, because there is no work that's going to fulfill you like that meaningfully without there being difficulties involved. Work is hard, or repetitive or whatever. There's going to be something that's going to make you start looking elsewhere. So, and he talks about that a lot, just kind of, how do you, instead of work-life balance, how do you cultivate balance that expresses itself in your work and your life, which tend to have weather systems that come and go, So I wonder if that isn't part of it. People are kind of looking for something that doesn't really exist. So they're hopping around a lot, and and if they feel undervalued by low pay or inflexibility or, poor leadership, of course they're going to move on even quicker, you know?
Well, I always say I give credit to corporate America for making me look outside my job for fulfillment, for happiness, for all those things. Because if it wasn't for being so unhappy in work, I probably wouldn't have gone as deep as I have to try to find things to balance my life out so that I look forward to things at night and on the weekends and stuff like that. And then that also helps me personally in my interactions with other people at work because I'm a better person for it kind of thing. So in that respect, that's kind of I think what you're saying too, is like I do find something, although, you can always improve your, I don't know, I guess your outlook in any given moment. It's perception too. So when I'm feeling particularly lousy, there's not a good way that I've learned to snap myself out of it really quickly sometimes.
I was working with a group of a leadership group, and we were talking about just the practices you have that allow you to feel balanced and healthy. And I said, just imagine, a stressful day of work when you're coming in feeling strong and after a good night's sleep and nourished, how much more resilient you are to that than if you slept 2 hours the night before and had an argument with your spouse this morning. The work situation has not changed. It's just your vulnerability to that environment that's changed. So how do we practice in advance strengthening ourselves in a way where we're able to start from a place of health and well-being, and then you can handle, the more stressful environments that you're put in.
Exactly.
Well, also, what's kind of interesting too, before people were told to look for their why, they were told to find their passion. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
What are you passionate about? So when I came into one place, probably, I don't know, 2008 or 2009, things were going to hell in a handbasket as far as sales, and it was just a mess. And when I sat down with the owner of the company, he said, they keep telling me that I need to get a passion advisor. And I said, what's that do? He says, well, it helped me first find out what I'm passionate about. I said, John, you're 56 years old. Dude, if you didn't bring it with you, you ain't going to find it anywhere, And I said, have you ever just thought about being passionate about everything? And then model that behavior everywhere you go? You're just totally upbeat. He said, Bill, that's not me. And I said, well, I can't help you. Okay. I will not take your money and watch this place go down the tubes the way that it is right now, but I will make you this recommendation. Find yourself someone who is able to be passionate about everything authentically. He did. He hired this woman and made her vice president in charge of manufacturing and operations. Their presenteeism went up crazy because how I closed him, he said, these people are not passionate. We're there at the end of the shift. I said, you don't think they're passionate? I said, come over here by the window. I said, got a watch? Start now, end of shift. People were out in their cars, driving out of the parking lot, and the parking lot was bare in 5 minutes. I said, you think they're not motivated and passionate? They're just not motivated and passionate about what you got them doing and how you got them doing it. And he said, that is really cool. And I said, you don't need to hire me. You need to go and find somebody that will inspire people just because they're walking through the room. And that's what he did.
Cool.
And he's been buying me dinner ever since. So anyhow, you know what, ladies and gentlemen? It's with an A, gentlemen. I think we're at the top of the hour. Any closing thoughts from y'all?
Ask your why 7 times. Just try it. And then find a coach.
Yeah. And
Fine.
while you're, oh, go ahead, Jan.
I was just going to say find balance somehow.
Mhm. Yeah, and I was just
So-
thinking when you're finding that coach, I think it was Tony Robbins that said, stand guard at the doorway to your mind.
Mhm.
Hope is not a plan. So just add a little bit of rigor to your decision making when you're looking for someone to support you in your journey and your goals.
There was also another great man that said, your mind is a dangerous neighborhood. Don't go in there alone. Another good reason for coaching. So thank you guys. Again, it's incredible spending time with you and having the best time ever every single time we talk. And my advice to you at home is if you think you need to hire somebody to teach you how to write a better resume or do all those sorts of things, or if you're one of those folks that's out there changing jobs every 3 or 4 months, trying to figure out what you're passionate about, put that all down and then go get some training in being passionate, how to generate it from nothing. When you can do that and you can authentically create passion in your life at any moment, it won't really matter what you're doing. And I really believe that that's the best advice I can give you, but it's also worth what you're paying me, which is not a lot. So with that said, I'm going to close as I always do these days. And that is, would each of you call, email, text someone you love and let them know that the world is a better place for you because they are in it. With that said, love you all. Bye-bye for now. We are lighting the candle, a world that works.
Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Until the next time.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can catch us each week as well as the rest of the network at exvadio.com/podcasts, as well as the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts.